Zack Snyder is a god. And yes, you're going to call any person who says that a fanboy. But once you get past this itch of doing that, you're going to realize I'm more or less right.
Okay, so maybe calling him a god is slightly superlative, but just watch this and judge for yourself. Yes, no, maybe. We'll get back to this later, but for now, let's talk on what this video is all about. So at the point of me recording this, Black Panther has broken all records at the box office and is on its way to the coveted 1 billion mark, and DC fans are still calling out for the Snyder cut. Then why is it that we are talking about Zack Snyder? It's more or less obvious that his era of making superhero movies is more or less gone. And that is exactly what this video is all about. The fact that the era of Zack Snyder is over. And when we will look back on this 5-10 years from now, we'll realize truly how sad that was. For those of you who do not know, Zack Snyder has been making big movies ever since the remake of the Dawn of the Dead all the way back in 2004, and when he came hot off the heels of Watchmen to direct the Man of Steel Superman reboot, there was quite a lot of sniggering. Now we have to remember that DC was then in its prime because of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, so they had all to look forward to, but let's think back on how it was. Zack Snyder has been called a visionary filmmaker for as long as I can remember,
owing specifically to his visual style of storytelling.
Remember 300?
This is Sparta!
And the Watchmen movie felt like it had been lifted right off the comic book panel.
Now the reason that Zack Snyder's movies before 300 had worked so wonderfully was because of the speed ramp effect that he so truly loves.
Just a matter of time, I suppose.
Notice how he slows down the action at the precise moment and speeds it back up just as the camera drifts along. What this does is that it leaves the viewer a spectator to carnage. And this is exactly what it's like reading a comic book. The same effect is very much adamant in both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Remember the opening shot, where Snyder plays through Batman's origin story in one very artistic and beautiful slow-mo montage. Now, considering that Zack Snyder has had such a great presence in the entire DCEU, you can see why this aesthetic carries over in other movies. Not only does the color palette looks and feels the same, but the early action sequences from Wonder Woman feel very much like the ones from 300. And Wonder Woman's carnage through the German offices, quite similar to Batman's rescue of Martha Kent in Batman v Superman. And it is not a coincidence that the best sequence in Justice League toys with the use of slow motion to show exactly how powerful Superman is. Now, there are a lot of people who snigger at this style, but then the unique kind of artsy is always looked down upon. Now consider DC. Zack Snyder oversaw the overarching narrative that separates the DC movies from the MCU. It is quite obvious that even though the DC movies were uneven or struggled with pure storytelling, they have always been more consistent and extremely more interesting than all of their counterparts at Marvel. The unity of Snyder's vision made DC movies what they were. There was an idea that began with Man of Steel.
Superman is the most powerful, but also the most vulnerable superhero you can imagine.
He's an incredibly conflicted, lonely, and lost person.
It's a timeless story.
And it was quite a simple idea. What happens if gods came to Earth? It forced the viewers to consider what would happen. What responsibilities would a man with such godlike power be willing to accept? Batman v Superman was the natural progression to this idea. How the world's most powerful men would react to finding themselves at a loss of power. Realizing that they no longer live at the top of the food chain. How they would protect humanity from such new gods or monsters. Suicide Squad asked how the government would respond to such an event. Wonder Woman was quite literally about the need for these gods and to understand the fact that their power can sometimes lead to death and destruction, but that they also have the power to make the world a better place. Perhaps Justice League was supposed to ask how the world would respond to losing their newfound god, the most logical endpoint to the question Zack Snyder first raised with Man of Steel. And it's only too bad we'll never be able to see what Snyder truly intended to do with the movie. The fans' quest for the Snyder Cut will probably stay unsatiated, and we'll just have to wait and watch what Snyder has in store for us next. Hey, thank you so much for watching till the end. Click the subscribe button right here so that I get motivated to make more such videos for you guys. See you in the next one.